Earth was a dangerous place millions of years ago. Giant beasts roamed the land, oceans hid monsters bigger than boats, and forests burned under dark, smoky skies. Insects as large as birds crawled everywhere, and entire species vanished in an instant. But what was our prehistoric planet truly like? And more importantly, could humans have survived in such a wild, unforgiving world? Here's what would happen if you traveled through the entire history of prehistoric Earth. Can you imagine a world with no trees, no grass, and no dinosaurs? Let's rewind 540 million years, when vast oceans covered almost the entire Earth. But something amazing was about to happen. The Cambrian period was like Earth's grand opening for animals. For billions of years before, life was small and simple. Tiny microbes, algae, and soft-bodied creatures. Then, during the Cambrian Explosion, animals with shells, eyes, and even the first backbones appeared in the sea. But what caused this great change? Some scientists believe oxygen in the air and water rose just enough to let animals grow larger and stronger. Now picture yourself swimming in a Cambrian ocean. Would you breathe? Probably not, because the oxygen level was still low. Yet here, strange and wonderful animals filled the seas. There were trilobites, the armored tanks of the ancient oceans, crawling across the seafloor. Some were as small as your fingernail, while others grew longer than a house cat. Another hunter was Anomalocaris, a shrimp-like giant with spiny mouthparts ready to grab its prey. Even stranger was Opabinia, with 5 eyes and a claw on its head that worked like a grabber toy. But the most important character of all was Pikaia, a tiny worm-like swimmer with the first notochord, the early version of a backbone. Without creatures like Pikaia, there would be no fish, no birds, no lions, and no humans today. But this explosion of life is only the beginning. Soon, Earth's first giants arrive, and the oceans will never be the same again. The Devonian period arrived about 416 million years ago, and the planet looked very different. Two huge supercontinents were slowly drifting, and the seas covered much of the land. Scientists call this time the Age of Fishes, and for good reason, because in these waters swam creatures that could swallow you whole. Dunkleosteus, one of Earth's first true giants. This armored fish stretched longer than a school bus and had jaws strong enough to slice through anything. If you were swimming near it, survival would not be likely. Other strange fishes appeared too, some with heads shaped like horseshoes, others with bodies like shields. And yet, these monsters were only part of the story. Not every fish wore armor. Some, like the first sharks, built their skeletons out of cartilage, the same material in your nose and ears today. Others were the bony fish, ancestors of most modern seafood. Among them were the lobefins, with fleshy fins that worked almost like little legs. One lobefin named Tiktaalik was special. Fossils show it had a crocodile-like head, strong ribs, and fins sturdy enough to push itself on the land. Could it really take a breath of air and survive on shore? Tiktaalik was the start of all animals that would one day walk. While oceans swarmed with predators, the land was changing too. Plants began spreading, first as small stems, then as the world's first great trees. The champion was Archaeopteryx, which grew taller than 10-story buildings. These forests pumped oxygen into the air and pulled carbon dioxide out, changing Earth's climate. But with new life came danger. The close of the Devonian period didn't just mark change, it unleashed one of the deadliest chapters in Earth's story, the second of the Big Five mass extinctions. While many scientists even argue we are now entering a sixth extinction caused by humans, the late Devonian ends in catastrophe. Reefs that once looked like underwater cities collapse, leaving only ruins behind. Oxygen vanishes from the seas, turning them into suffocating traps. Imagine holding your breath underwater, only to discover there is no air at all. That is what fish and corals faced. Massive algal blooms spread across the oceans like green blankets, blocking sunlight and choking everything below. Nearly 80% of species vanish, including many that had ruled the seas for millions of years. The armored titans, the placoderms, disappear forever. Trilobites, already in decline, are nearly wiped out. Jawless fishes, once among the earliest pioneers, vanish as well. Even ammonites, the coiled cousins of modern squids, fall victim to the crisis. It is Earth's second great extinction. Could you survive in a world where the very oceans were poisoned? Few did. Yet not all is lost. Sharks, smaller and quicker, endure the chaos. Bony fishes with flexible bodies and clever adaptations make it through the storm. On land, forests stand tall, and amphibians like Tiktaalik's descendants continue to test their limits beyond the water. Life adapts, even when everything seems broken. Out of the ruins, new survivors rise. But what kind of world could grow from such devastation? The answer is stranger, darker, and far more incredible than you might imagine. The Carboniferous period, a time when Earth turned into one giant swampy jungle. Imagine endless forests of strange trees, club mosses as tall as skyscrapers, ferns with leaves wider than umbrellas, and horsetails that grew higher than houses. This was the Coal Age, named for the thick layers of coal formed from all that plant life. But what made this world so unusual was not just the forests, it was the air itself. Oxygen levels soared to nearly 35%, far higher than today. If you lit a campfire here, it would explode into flames instantly. That's how oxygen-rich the air was. And the result was creepiest cast of creatures Earth had ever seen. Millipedes stretched over 2 meters long, crawling through the undergrowth like armored buses. Cockroaches reached the size of dinner plates. Scorpions grew to 1 meter and lurked in the shadows. Most famous of all were the dragonflies, Meganeura, with wingspans as wide as seagulls, swooping through the sky like living drones. Would you dare walk through this forest, knowing even the bugs could tower over you? But insects were not the only rulers here. Amphibians, some as big as crocodiles, prowled the wetlands with jaws full of teeth. They laid their eggs in water, but a few of their cousins unlocked a secret that would change everything: the amniote egg. With it came the very first reptiles, small, agile creatures that no longer needed ponds to raise their young. Could you imagine watching the first reptiles scurry across the forest floor, never knowing they would one day lead to dinosaurs and us? For now, Earth seemed like a paradise, lush, green, and full of giants. But this paradise won't last. Earth is about to face its deadliest era. The Permian period began about 299 million years ago, and Earth was changing fast. All the land had joined together into one enormous supercontinent called Pangaea. In the south, ice sheets covered the ground. In the north, deserts burned under the sun and froze at night. Not only this, the lush swamp forests of earlier times were gone, replaced by tough plants like conifers and seed ferns. These plants spread their seeds through the wind, no longer depending on water. While amphibians struggled in this dry world, reptiles took over. Their thick, scaly skin helped them survive, and soon they ruled the land. Among them was the mighty Dimetrodon, a car-long predator with a sail on its back, truly the menace of its time. By warming up quickly in the morning, it could leap at prey with deadly speed. Would you want to share a neighborhood with a lizard that big? Probably not the best neighbor to have. But Dimetrodon was only part of the story. The land was filled with synapsids, creatures that looked reptilian but were ancestors of mammals. Some, like Lystrosaurus, were small, beaked plant eaters that traveled in herds. Adorable little characters of the prehistoric world. Others, called therapsids, were smarter, faster, and may have even been furry and warm-blooded. From these survivors, true mammals would one day appear. Also, the seas held armored fishes, squid-like nautiloids, and spiral-shelled amphibians. But then disaster struck. In what is now Siberia, colossal volcanoes erupted for thousands of years. Spewing poisonous gases that choked the air and turned oceans acidic. Food chains collapsed and life unraveled on land and sea. While some scientists point to an asteroid impact, others to methane released from the oceans, rising aridity, or a deadly mix of all these forces. Whatever the cause, the result was catastrophic. Up to 90% of all species vanished. Trilobites, insects, and many mammal-like reptiles perished. Earth had never come closer to losing life entirely, and recovery took millions of years. And yet, from this destruction, a new age begins. Perhaps a combination of factors was to blame. But whatever the cause, new animals and plants would evolve to fill the void, not least among them, the dinosaurs. The Triassic period opened like the dawn after a storm. Earth was scarred, silent, and almost empty after the Great Dying. Yet slowly, survivors crept back. As I mentioned earlier, during this time, all the land was joined together into a Pangaea. Shaped like a giant sea, it stretched from pole to pole. Around it rolled the vast ocean, Panthalassa, while the warm Tethys Sea shimmered in the middle. Coastal areas felt fierce monsoons. But deep inland stretched endless deserts hotter than any summer you have ever known. With no polar ice caps, even the coldest regions stayed warm. If you lived here, where could you find shade, water, or even food? Honestly, I assume no one would have wanted to live there under such harsh conditions. Life, however, was inventive. In rivers, crocodile-like reptiles snapped their jaws at anything that dared to drink. In the seas swam ichthyosaurs, sleek as dolphins, and long-necked plesiosaurs, chasing squid and fish. Forests of conifers, ginkgos, and cycads rose across the land, while insects, some as large as birds, hummed in the air. Then came the newcomers. Coelophysis, a nimble predator, raced on 2 legs, hunting in packs. Soon after, the giant Plateosaurus thundered across the plains, stripping plants with its jaws. And yet, under their feet scurried tiny shrew-like mammals. They laid eggs, but nursed their young with milk. They were small, but they carried the key to the future. By the end of the Triassic, volcanoes once again shook the planet. Another extinction loomed. But soon dinosaurs will rise to become Earth's undisputed rulers. The Jurassic began in a world where the land itself was breaking apart. The mighty supercontinent Pangaea split into 2, Laurasia in the north and Gondwana in the south, separated by a vast prehistoric sea called the Tethys Ocean. New oceans rose, flooding lowlands, while the climate grew warm and sticky, almost like a never-ending tropical vacation. This was the golden age of dinosaurs. Plant eaters called sauropods grew to sizes beyond belief. Brachiosaurus could stretch higher than a 5-story building, while Diplodocus was longer than a basketball court. But here's the twist. Jurassic plants were less nutritious than today's crops, so many sauropods had to eat half a ton of leaves every single day just to survive. Would you ever be able to keep up with that kind of diet? Probably not, unless you really love salad. No wonder in Jurassic Park those giants left everyone wide-eyed, amazed, and a little hungry themselves. Predators like Allosaurus stalked these giants, while Stegosaurus waddled with its armored back and sharp tail spikes, ready for defense. In the seas, long-necked plesiosaurs and fish-like ichthyosaurs ruled the waves. And in the skies, Archaeopteryx, the first bird-like dinosaur, flapped its feathered wings, sharing airspace with leathery-winged pterosaurs. Yet the middle of the Jurassic still hides secrets. Rising seas swallowed many coastlines, leaving only fragments of the fossil record. Scientists puzzle over this missing chapter, wondering how birds truly began and how armored dinosaurs first appeared. As the Jurassic period drew to a close, some groups faded while others thrived, setting the stage for even bigger creatures. During the Cretaceous, Pangaea had already broken apart, and the land was drifting toward the shapes we know today. North America split in half by a massive sea, while South America, Africa, and India sailed into their own places. With sea levels almost 170 meters higher than now, shallow oceans covered much of the land. The climate was warmer than today. No ice caps. Forests stretched nearly to the poles. Even Antarctica was covered in green, hosting forests of conifers, ginkgos, and ferns. And then something new appeared, flowering plants. Imagine early versions of magnolias, figs, and sassafras carpeting the land. But if the sun disappeared for 4 months at the poles, how could those plants survive in complete darkness? Well, they adapted, waiting patiently until light returned. So dinosaurs ruled every corner of this world. In the south, sauropods called titanosaurs grew longer than basketball courts. In the north, horned herds of triceratops grazed across plains, while predators like Tyrannosaurus rex dominated with bone-crushing bites. Hadrosaurs, the cows of the Cretaceous, chewed plants with hundreds of tiny teeth. Above them soared giant pterosaurs like Quetzalcoatlus, as long as a small airplane, while oceans swarmed with mosasaurs and plesiosaurs. Then came the catastrophe. About 66 million years ago, an asteroid roughly 7.5 miles wide slammed into what is now Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula at 45,000 miles per hour, leaving a crater over 120 miles wide. Dust, debris, and sulfur filled the atmosphere, covering the planet into darkness and severe global cooling. Wildfires ignited land within 900 miles, while a massive tsunami swept outward. Moreover, global warming from volcanic eruptions at India's Deccan Flats may have worsened conditions. Overnight, ecosystems collapsed. 3/4 of all species died, including all non-avian dinosaurs, pterosaurs, and many marine reptiles. And with it, the dinosaurs are gone. Or are they? After the last dinosaurs vanished, mammals quickly took over. Small, furry creatures evolved into squirrels, early primates, and even whales that could swim through oceans. Some mammals became giants. Woolly mammoths marched across icy tundras, and enormous ground sloths climbed prehistoric forests, shaking trees as they fed. In the oceans, danger lurked. Megalodon, the largest shark in history, prowled the seas, hunting whales with jaws wider than a car. Life was full of risks, but mammals were clever and adaptable. They had hair to stay warm, teeth for every diet, and brains that helped them survive in a changing world. As millions of years passed, new ecosystems formed. Grasslands spread, forests shrank, and rivers carved valleys. Mammals diversified into lions, elephants, and deer, while birds filled the skies. Then came the ultimate twist: humans. Small and vulnerable at first, we mastered fire, shaped stone tools, and built shelters to protect ourselves, from speaking in words to planting crops, building cities, and eventually reaching space. Humans became the first species to shape the planet in their own image. In fact, you are living in the Cenozoic era today. The story of Earth's prehistoric past is still unfolding, and we are part of it. Every glacier, every forest, and every ocean wave tells a story that began long before humans appeared. Life transformed, adapted, and evolved, and now it's our turn. From giant dinosaurs to woolly mammoths, Earth's prehistoric planet was wild, strange, and full of surprises. Through it all, life adapted, and now that life is us. The question is, will we protect our planet or repeat the past? Which prehistoric creature would you most want to see alive today? Subscribe for more science scenarios every week.